Let's welcome our over 200 startups from the EY startup community here in the audience. Is anybody here from these 200 entrepreneurs? Over there. Say hello to them with a big applause. Nice to have you here. Is it right you just arrived here? From where? From Hamburg. Welcome. So it's also nice to have him here. He's over there. He's Senior Manager Financial Accounting Advisory Service EY, Mr. Jan Brorhilker. Welcome.
Okay, seems to be my stage now. Welcome from my side. I'm Jan, and I'm happy to moderate this panel today. And a warm welcome to my 5 wonderful guests. So please come on to the stage. Hey, yeah, come on. Okay, we're missing one. Oh.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let's jump into the topic. It's Startup Meet Corporates in the next 30 minutes. And we have fantastic guests. Ladies first, let me introduce Christine. She is Program Manager, Innovation Management at EnBW. In Germany, you would say EnBW. And it's, I think you all know the company. It's a large power utility. And she started at EnBW in the operational branch and is now responsible for searching for startups inside and outside EnBW. So I'm happy to have you here. Next to her is Manuel. He is working at Trumpf. Trumpf is a high technology company producing machinery, laser and electronic products. And he's also responsible for innovation management and is looking for mobile solutions as well. On the left side, it's Tom Kirschbaum. He has won the German Entrepreneur Award last year. And is a member of the board of the Bundesverband Deutsche Startups. So he's deep in the startup community involved. And his trip planning tool, Waymate, has won the award, I think. And I would ask you later on some questions to that startup. And on the right, Josef, who is a serial entrepreneur and investor. He founded his first company with 16 and sold many of them to corporates. So he can probably explain how that works out. And the famous one was the deal to Cisco System in 2013. And last but not least, I'm very happy to have Paul van Kessel here. He's our global leader digital practice. He's based in Amsterdam. And he has a very rich knowledge of how digital transformation works in startups and corporates as well. So happy to have you here all. And my first question is, Paul, you are an experienced digital transformer. And what is your perspective on the topic today? So on corporate meet startups, what are the challenges for both?
Yeah, thank you, Jan. And I'm very happy to be here. I already talked to about 20 or so of the 50 finalists. And the reason why I'm doing it, and that is exactly the answer to your question, is that I would like to spot innovation that can be used by a corporate like EY. We are doing our innovation ourselves. But it is not going fast enough. And that is what a startup can bring to a corporate. The second thing is that a corporate has their processes, their training programs, and all the people in a corporate are moving into a certain direction. And the DNA of a corporate is, in some cases, 10, 50, even 100 years old. And it is very difficult to think out of the box when you grew up in such a big grow up in such a big company. And that's another thing that corporates are looking for when they work with startups and integrate with startups. The out of the box thinking is not always coming from inside the corporate itself. I've seen a lot of innovation and out-of-the-box thinking coming from startups. So that's what corporates gain from startups. The other way around I've seen as well. So first of all, a startup is mainly focused on a particular product or a particular invention or a particular piece of innovation. And not so much on bookkeeping, marketing, consumerization, and that is what a startup can bring. So talking about consumerization, corporates has access to markets around the world, emerging markets, mature markets, sometimes thousands of accounts. And that is what a startup needs. Startup also need to build scale, and for scale you need funding. And I think you're going to talk about that a little bit more. But funding is also something that a corporate can offer. So let me keep it with this as a starter.
Thank you, Paul. Talking about corporates, Manuel, Trumpf seems to be very innovative, and over the last years as well. So what is the secret behind that?
Well, so maybe one secret is the team I work for, or work with. So we have the task at Trumpf to just to dive into new technologies, to dive there really fast and adopt them really fast, and to just set up little projects to get these new technologies to our field of work. So, but as fast as we adopt these technologies, we also have to just give them into production. So whenever we come to a part where we say, yeah, that's a technology we want to use, then we give it to the right people in our company who set this up and get it into production. But also we need to have we have to be open for failure. So if you have a technology that it's just not right for us, then we also have the possibility to throw it away. And so we can just look into technologies really early. So for example, we adopted the mobile applications really fast and even had the plan of a mobile tablet app right before the iPad came out. So we had the idea behind it, but the device was not there. And just to this situation, this time, the iPad came out, and so we had the right timing to just develop and go further. And that's the same with all the other technologies. So one reason why we're here is just to get the inspiration and get into contact with all the startups around here to adopt this technology really fast.
Okay. Christine, EnBW as a utility company, from a German perspective, is, I would say, less innovative. I think you have a different opinion on that. And how is it handled at EnBW, the innovation?
Maybe we first have a look why we don't only choose to become more innovative, but why we really have to become more innovative in the future. So the energy market is disruptively changing at the moment. For example, what I think most of you know is that the German Energiewende is taking place at the moment. So all the virtual power plants have to be shut down by 2022. And will be replaced by renewable energy that is so much more decentralized and volatile and depending on so many external factors. And that's not the only trend, but in addition to that, our customers want to become more independent from the big suppliers, as in so many other industries. So what our customers do is they put PV systems on their roofs and their own storages in their basements and try to become more independent. But on the other hand, they also want to get the highest level of service quality and the most convenience they can get. And that's the changes we have to face in the future. So what we have to become is a digital energy supplier that faces all the needs and meets all the needs our customers have. So we have to manage this really complex future world. And we're convinced that we have lots of competencies that will be needed in this new complex world, but we're also convinced that we won't be able to build up all the other competencies in the fast-changing market. So what we need to do is become more innovative from the inside-out perspective. So we need to have internal new business models in addition to the classical one, but we also need to find partners, both industries and startups, we can partner with and become successful in this future really complex and highly fast-changing markets.
Okay, interesting. Let's come to the external partners. Tom, your startup, Waymate, how is that innovative? Why?
Well, actually, the startup I'm running now is not Waymate, it's called Allryder. It's a different application. And what we do is we aggregate a lot of data for public transportation, put that into our platform and make it accessible by third parties. We call it the Internet of Urban Transport that we are building, which will allow in the future transportation to be dynamically and intelligently allocated and not as a moment where it's all static. You know, you have static routes, static timetables, static prices. And if you look at the big cities in the world, let's say Manila or Mexico City, you already see that there is traffic going dynamically. You have minibuses that go from A to B depending on the traffic situation, choosing a route where the actual demand is, which interestingly is not happening in Berlin or in Munich and Hannover. All there it's happening static. So that is what we are doing. It serves our own application. The Allryder app is an application that helps you navigating through every city in Europe. And at the same time, we have that accessible to third parties from automotive, from navigation, from travel. So in fact, we are working with corporate companies in our business model in an essential way.
Did you see that it's easier to establish innovation outside Germany?
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. If someone wants to really learn about a market that is very difficult to enter, you can talk to German transport companies. I can recommend that. It's all built, you know, on the federal structure that goes very deep over levels of hierarchy, and it's all put into legislation. So it's not the easiest market to disrupt, and that's why we are now focusing more on emerging market cities than cities in Europe. But still, innovation is possible. That has to be said too.
Okay. Josef, you've done a lot of companies so far. What is your perspective? If it's about innovation, is it difficult in Germany?
Well, you know, if you look at the way that I invest, then it's purely around innovation. So I always consider myself a business angel on steroids because I invest slightly more than other business angels. So my seed phase, I typically invest between 1 and 3 million. So pretty large for a seed round, but I'm entirely and to some extent exclusively focused on innovation, which means for me, two things basically. It needs to solve a global problem. So I don't want to solve something locally here for Germany or for another country. I want to solve something that is global. That's number one. And number two is it needs to come with a huge technology USP. Because otherwise, so if you start another online shop for dog food, for example, you know, it's easy to wash you out of the market with more money. And I try to be capital efficient because it's my own money. So I want to focus on stuff that has a real technology USP. And once customers bought into it, there's a lock-in and there's a trust. And it's hard to, you know, wash innovation and real USPs out of the market with just more money. And that's for me, innovation, solving a big global problem and be really unique in terms of how you set up your technology.
And what do you think are the challenges for the corporates? We have two of them on stage. What is your idea? What are the challenges for them, from your perspective?
Well, so their challenges, it depends on the corporate, but understanding the challenges of their customers, because sometimes they're really disconnected to their customers for various reasons. They have channel programs in place. They're not necessarily always talking directly to their customers. That's one problem. The second problem is making a decision. In our startup, you know, one of the beauties is you make a decision fairly quickly. You understand you're right or you're wrong, and then you change it. In a big company, for various reasons, it's tougher to make a decision quickly. You know, there's a lot of, you know, cover your ass theories in these companies, but also you got to protect your customer, right? You cannot go left and right from Monday to Tuesday. So making a very, you know, profound decision in a big company makes actually sense for them. So they can use their startups as, you know, teasers of different ideas in the marketplace. And that's why venture capital is, by the way, such an effective, capital-effective way of big companies to innovate, because you can see different approaches to solve an idea. You see the one that is performing best, and then you just cherry pick what's working best. It would be much more expensive if you try to do it internally, right? So that's a big challenge for corporates, is making these decisions and trying to identify new problems for their customers and trying to solve them quickly.
Manuel, how do you deal with this? Is he right?
Yeah, well, so he's maybe right in a lot of points. I think one of the biggest challenges for the startups is to let's say for us is we have to think in two different speed levels. So it's true, the startup and also the IT is moving really fast and adopting changes really quickly. And on the other hand, like we are a machine manufacturing company, and we have to think in lower speed and in just a larger time period. And these are two different kind of levels, and we have to just to combine these two levels to just be flexible with both of two. And so that's maybe where we have to communicate a lot with also the startups and the IT company to just move to each other and go further together.
Tom, do you think there are any other problems for corporates from your perspective?
I think it all starts with one honest confession on the corporate side, and that is that some part of innovation, particularly in the digital world, won't happen within the company sphere because it happens so fast and so radical that it's almost impossible for a corporate company to see that something is going on which will most likely threaten the original business model, and at the same time you have to follow the old path and have to enter into a new path where you do something that the old stuff might extinguish one day. And when you have that confession in place, I think it's getting a lot easier, because then you know that you have to work with external partners like startup companies. You can really try out things with them. Sometimes you might have to acquire them even to get the innovation into your company. And you see that the traditional processes and structures of a corporate company do not fit to work with a startup company as agile and as radically as it's necessary. And we are working with big corporate companies at the moment, and we see the farther away the unit of the corporate who is in charge with a startup corporation actually is, easier it gets. So if you have a company that regards a startup as a traditional corporation partner, then it's a nightmare. And one example is that we, at the final stage of a process, we got a call from the procurement office of a big German company, and they said, okay, we looked into your balance sheet of 2013 and you were not profitable at that time. Could you send us please the update on 2014? I said, yes, I can do that, but it's even worse. And they were like, oh my God, that is really a problem. You know, how do we know that you are running a sustainable company? I said, all I can assure you of is that we do, and that has to be good enough. And they said, that's impossible. We have never done it like this before. So this is one tiny example of thousands that startup companies experience. The good thing is, though, I see many corporate companies working on this. Like you guys, you know, where you say, okay, we see that and we have to tackle it. But there are many, many, many details on the way that have to change.
Christina, how do you handle that?
So I think the first thing you have to do is to confess all the challenges the others have already mentioned. That's the most important thing. And then I think you have to start to talk about them with the startups. And to start with a practical example, what we, for example, did was just opening up a small innovation management that's close to the company to meet all the company needs, but it's still far away enough to be faster than the classical company. And what we did, we started to find partners in the startup world who can tell us about the needs in the startup world. For example, we partnered with Startup Bootcamp or Beta House, or right now Code N as a strategical partner. And we searched for startups who are willing to do the step towards the companies. And we as the innovation management try to be the bridge between the company and the startups, and to be the middle part that's fast enough to meet the needs of the startups, but that still understands the company and can explain what's going on in the startup world and what the needs of the startups are, and why the speed in the startup world is a lot faster than in the company. And once we've started, we realized that we have lots of fans in the company and lots of people who are willing to jump on this train. I don't know if you say that in English, to jump on. And to cooperate with us. And I think that's one of the really important things, how it works. You have to find the ones in the company and in the startup world who are willing to find the small path between company and startups where this path together can be working.
And is there a timeline for return on investment on this cooperation, or is it just going on and on and on?
That's a good question. So the first thing, I think Uli Hühner, he's sitting over there and smiling, had to discuss with our CEO was like, when will there be a return on invest when you start your innovation management and when we give you money? And that's also one huge sign and commitment our company did. They gave us some time and they committed they won't give us return on invest deadlines in the first couple of years, but they would give us the space. We will be needing to have a plan how we can be successful as a partner in the startup world. And that's one of the main success factors I think we have to really be able to act in a pride-free way in the startup world and to meet the needs of the startups without having the company in our neck who's telling us, but you committed to 100 million return on invest the first year, so you have to do that now, and we don't have to, so we have the freedom to get a feeling in the startup company. But still, the pressure is really high because, as I've already said, we don't just want to innovate, we have to innovate. So that doesn't mean that we have less pressure than all the other parts of the company, but I think it's even more, and we hope we find all the partners we need to be successful.
Paul, from your point as an advisor, what did you see in your global project? What can do corporates differently to succeed?
Yeah, I represent a corporate myself, and I don't think the corporates are doing anything wrong, right? And that's the problem. So let me explain that. The corporate was once also a small little company, and every time when a bright idea came up, they said, yes, let's do it. And they started to grow and grow, and they became bigger, and innovation happened slower and slower. But their DNA is, or their habit is, that every time when there is an issue, a corporate wants to solve that by themselves. And that is something that we see changing rapidly in the last 5 to 10 years. You cannot solve everything yourself. It is about the ecosystem that you build. A corporate or a startup can only be successful when you are part of a network of parties, either startups, corporates, universities, professors, partners, alliances. So that is the one thing I would like to say. The other challenge is, and I repeat a little bit of what you said, is that what happened a lot is that when a corporate wants to work with a target, whether that is in an alliance construction or it's, they acquire the target, then all of a sudden the corporate wants that startup to work along the lines of the corporate. So they want to dictate processes, they want to incorporate the startup in an existing business unit, and then you kill the innovation. So you need to work with a startup and respect their pace, their culture, their habits. You can better keep them on arm's length and work with them from that starting point than try to make them part of your bigger corporate.
Okay, thank you. Josef, now I would like to know some war stories from your experience with corporates and selling your company to corporates. What is your experience day to day working with them, or having worked with them?
Well, Paul just said something that I can only echo. So, the challenge is you have a great idea and you see a great ramp up in terms of business. And at the end of the day, it's all about the business, right? And then you got to make sure as a corporate that whatever you do with this company, you're not putting too many process challenges on these innovative guys, because you will not only kill an innovation. I think that's one challenge. The biggest challenge I see is when you acquire a company, you're not acquiring technology alone, and you're not acquiring profits alone. You're acquiring talent, the people that build something. And the more process you put on top of these guys, the more likely it is that they leave again, right? And there's some corporates, as part of their M&A practices, they pay their guys differently now. You obviously have your CFO commit. Typically, you got to reach it within 2 years to justify the price. But the other metrics they're using now is how long can we keep the talent, because they are acquiring the talent, or what the talent's built, so expensively. So every year they keep these guys alive internally is a year of innovation for them, right? So I think that's a huge challenge. And then the other challenge, speaking from a corporate perspective, is how do you bring innovation to when you partner with startups, how do you bring innovation to your biggest asset, which is the customer? As a big corporate, your biggest asset is your brand, the trust related with your brand, and your customers. And you want to use the startups to bring innovation to your customers, and the startups want to use your brand and your access to these customers to sell innovation. And you got to find a really strong line of demarcation here of how much access do you give, how much risk do you take, versus the challenge associated with a cluster that might come up at your customer. So I think these are the two challenges the corporate face.
Did you realize any difference working with overseas corporates or German corporates? A cultural difference or something?
Yeah, so first of all, I always want to get acquired by a US company, right? Because the multiple is just healthier. And I was acquired 4 times. It was always a US-based company, which for a lot of reasons makes sense, right? And that also speaks for the risk they're going, right? I mean, they invest in these partnerships, right? Not only when they acquire you, they never will ask you about your EBITDA, right? I mean, they're not interested and they want to fool your growth. So that's a big challenge. What I think is really interesting in this new wave, where we have, as Germany has 1,200 market leaders in Germany alone. We have a huge industrial backbone, and we are now at a point where we are seriously risking our GDP if we are not digitalizing our business well enough and fast enough. And that's really interesting because US companies, they try to innovate them all over again because they get so much pressure also from the startup world. But German companies, being much older and have a different way of acting with challenges and innovation, seem to be not as fast enough. And this time I think something is seriously at risk, right? Because the core of our GDP is at risk here with this whole Industry 4.0 discussion.
Okay. Tom, is that something you realize from your work for the Bundesverband? If there's a difference between UK or US investors or corporates to Germans?
Well, yeah, obviously it is, of course. If you look at the ecosystem that you see in the US, or we can look at Israel too, a small country which is very innovative, very radical. We do see that it applies to the corporate companies, to the investors, and I have to confess, sometimes to the startups too. I think German startups are sometimes looking at the German market too long because it's 80 million people, it looks all very nice and comfortable, and you have many corporate companies that you can approach to, and then you miss out like the bigger picture. And when you're working from Israel, where there is no such thing as an interesting market, these companies go immediately to the US or to Russia or wherever. So that is one factor I think that plays an important role. At the same time, I see when we look particularly at the automotive industry, which is still probably the industry that Germany is known for best in the world, best cars come from Germany and stuff. And these companies, of course, get now a lot of pressure by Google and Apple and the self-driving cars and the technology that will rather be based on software and not hardware anymore. So now corporates start to wake up, German corporates, even the automotive companies, and they realize, okay, wait a minute, our research departments do not have all these solutions on the shelf. We have to do something. And they look for startups and they do impossible things, like working with us. That used to be impossible. So yeah, in a nutshell, it is like this. The US market is far more used to a corporation, an alliance, an acquisition between a corporate company and a startup. But we do see that coming in Germany and in Europe too.
Christine, you are representing a German corporate. What can you offer the startups sitting there?
I think the one thing he's already mentioned is the customer access. We can provide as the one big thing that every big company has. I think the specialty with EnBW is that we have all the know-how in the energy sector that's really important to be successful in the energy market because it has so many regulations. It's such a complex industry. So that's the second thing. And I think, but I'm also the responsible one for the Baden-Württemberg startup scene, so maybe I'm not the totally objective person right now. I think especially in Baden-Württemberg, it's a huge advantage that the industry like EnBW or also Daimler, Bosch, Trumpf and all the other industries are close together and that all of them are opening up at the moment and starting to understand that it's important for the Baden-Württemberg startup scene to commit to the scene and to find a USP in Baden-Württemberg that's already there, I think. So the industry is over there, all the high-tech and really good universities are over there, and we are willing to open up. We want to build up a really good startup scene that can compete with Silicon Valley or Berlin or anything like that. And I think we are the ones sitting right here who can be able to manage that and to make it happen.
Okay, last question for this panel, Paul. What is the key insight, just to sum up from this discussion for you?
Well, I think what struck me in the whole discussion is that everybody basically said that corporates and startups need each other. So there are challenges, but there are more opportunities than challenges. If the corporate is the body, then probably the startup is the oxygen. And one thing that I would like to add to the discussion is we didn't talk much about the customer. But when I look at the customers, whether that's a corporate customer or it's a customer from a startup, the customer doesn't buy it anymore when you say, you know, we can solve all your issues or we can meet all your requirements. The buyer of today is always looking at you know, the various partners in the market and values it even more when you come up as a consortium and say, you know, we are coming to solve your issue, not only by ourselves, but we have all kinds of parties that are very strong in certain areas. And so that underlines the statement I started with, that corporates and startups need each other.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, all of us, that you have found time to be here. And I would like you now to invite you all to the EY place. It's on the first floor, and you can meet Trumpf, you can meet EnBW, and you can meet, of course, us as a corporate, as I've learned. And furthermore, you can meet the new car, Budi. So please visit us in the first floor, and we're happy to meet you all and discuss your questions with the corporates at our stage. Thanks.
Thank you.